Thank you, Ritu, for such an impressive and ornate introduction of all of us. Well, it certainly makes me feel elated and humbled. Thank you, Vibrant Forum, too, for having us on this platform for this discussion. Well, I'm Mandeep, and I come from the telecom industry, which is the backbone of this digital revolution that we are undergoing throughout the world. And today, I would be hobnobbing with these two big celebrated honchos, Niraj, Sharan, and Ravi Ji, as we dearly call him, who are the names of acclaim in the entrepreneurship and e-commerce industry. And you really heard the introduction, the detailed one. Before we dive into the conversation, I urge our viewers to grab their afternoon coffee and join us as we are warming up to this fireside conversation on the subject steering the corporate ship. Steering the corporate ship sounded very simple when Vibrant, Forum told me that this is what we have to have our discussion around. But when I started preparing for this last night, putting my thoughts around it, I realized how eclectic is the scope it encompasses. The world has changed on such a fast pace in this last decade. Many of the millennials don't even know that we had technologies like TDMA, 1G, and we had it for 1 year before the 2G was launched in 1991. And 2G really lasted happily in isolation for all the voice and text experience for 10 years before 3G came in, and they both coexisted like a married couple for another decade. And while it took so long for the 2Gs and 3Gs to come, 4G came soon after, even when we hadn't even realized the 3G investments. And now we're already getting ready for 5G. So that is how technology is changing. Taking one more example of the nearby, sector, pardon me for my only, similar examples of telecom and related fields. In Android's cupcake became eclair, and soon enough, gingerbread was eaten by Oreo and pie. And now they are followed by the Droid 10, which is the final one. Well, Droid 10 really looks like Droid has hit upon a draught of puddings and pies. And, well, that was on a lighter note, but the point that I'm trying to make, gentlemen and ladies, here is that, at the space that the technology is changing in all space, in all areas, it is making the old one redundant so soon. Are the organizations and the industries and the big business houses, they are also making that shift, the much needed shift, keeping pace with this breakneck speed and keeping themselves abreast and future ready. So I'm sure a lot is happening on that ground, but certainly the current situation at hand has multiplied the complexity manyfold. And there must be a dire need for many organizations to reorganize, restructure, and reorchestrate their ways of working. So there is no better time than this, when the whole world has paused and we are all poised to reflect and reboot ab initio. So, well, to make this complex subject, now that as we realize it's not so simple, I am trying to make the opening slightly simpler by using this old tried and tested method that we use in all our imagine and ideation workshops in the corporates. Following that, so I would like to first ask Neeraj, what are those things that we need to stop doing? Because as Indians, typically we tend to hold on to our traditions, old traditions that have really paid us and brought us laurels in the past, and we don't want to let go. But maybe they have become redundant. So as per you, broadly, which can cover and influence 80% of the industry, let's say, if not all, what are the things that we should stop doing and bid adieu to?
Thank you, Mandeep, and thank you, Vibrant Network. It's good to be back here. I was here last year sometime in May, June. Uh, I picked up on one word you said, keep it simple. I think let's try and keep this simple. Um couldn't have been a better time. I wish we had a crystal ball. Everyone's looking for that crystal ball. So what is it that's going to happen or we should have done or not? But anyway, I'll make three very quick, simple points that may allude to what I think as corporates or leaders we should stop doing. And one is that comes to my mind first is to stop being in the comfort zone. The law of inertia. Honestly, it's good to say that, but in real life, we all procrastinate and we all like to be in the comfort zone. So first thing I would say, stop being in the comfort zone. The second point I would like to make, I'll make three quick points. I'm sure Ravi would have so much more input with his vast experience here. The second is stop being static. We are looking at an anticipation world right now. You have to anticipate what's going to happen. Just like, I know how many of you know, I'm sure you guys know the game of ice hockey in Canada. And the ball, which is called the puck, it's always about anticipating where the puck is going to be, no, not where it is at this point. And you have to be there beforehand with preparedness. So stop being static. And, there's one little corollary to this is that out on the edge, the approach is out on the edge. People who are on the edge, they are able to look at things much quicker than people who are in the center. The people on the edge look at stuff which have not been done. So try and be in that forum itself also. Third is, which may not sound very good to the corporate world, but stop being a bully. Sometimes we tend to be a bully to even our customers, but more than customers, we are far more at times being bullied to our ecosystem. As an example, we have our supply chain, everybody's got partners. And most often, where I find problem is that the corporate grows, but the suppliers in the supply chain are actually carrying the burden of all that. And long term, it gets very difficult to have a sustainable growth with that. So that's the three very quick points, Mandeep.
Thank you so much. I think I would just like to paraphrase again and reiterate. Break inertia. I think that is a very important point that you made. Stop being static and start preempting what's going to come in the future. Be ready for that. And stop being bully. I'm taking back these 3 points for myself, and I'm sure viewers are also making their notes. Now I would come to Ravi and I would ask them, what are the things we should start doing?
Sure. Thank you, Mandeep. And it's great to be here on this panel alongside Niraj and you, Mandeep. And this is the first time I'm being part of this vibrant networking forum. True to its word, it is going to be really vibrant. So look forward to having an engaging conversation over the next 30 minutes or so. So yeah, I think, Niraj, you nailed it and you kind of laid it out in a very simple and succinct manner. In terms of what we should be doing, I think we could go all over the a map and talk about it for hours together. Let me also try being simple in my response. Let's kind of take a stock of landscape, right? And we are looking at a world where the customers are far more demanding, regardless of which vertical and business you are in. The data is exploding every nook and corner, right? And then technology has become mission critical, not just a supporting and enabling function anymore. And the customers want the product and the service life cycles to be crunched. You are on a treadmill and you're a continuum of innovation. And that's what the landscape is looking like. And then to sort of make matters a little more complex, we're also dealing with the world of VUCA, and most of us heard this word, acronym VUCA for many years. I think this is more relevant now. For some of you who have not been initiated with this, VUCA stands for volatility and uncertainty and complexity and ambiguity that businesses confront and embark from time to time. I think that is more relevant now in these trying times. And if you don't sort of embrace this dynamic and continue to do the things that you've done in the past, the insurgents are there around the edge, like Niraj had alluded to. They are lurking on the edge, and it's only a matter of time the incumbents will get disrupted or displaced, right? And we've seen many instances where that happened in many verticals, and we can go on and on talking about those the scenarios. So what it essentially means is, we are going back and looking at our business and finding ways to sort of, bring digital transformation. This is not a board spiel anymore. This is here and now. Every company that I know of have embraced this agenda, and some are. It's only a question of where they are in the maturity curve. Almost everyone that I know of has embarked on the journey. And again, it goes back to four things doing it right. And first and foremost, you need to really have a clear strategy and transformation agenda that everybody buying into. And you will have many organizations having silos and trying to do things in their own way from a digital transformation standpoint. I think it calls for a tremendous leadership to bring all the stakeholders together and go back to the mission and vision. I think mission and vision wouldn't largely change. It's a strategy that we need to sort of relocate from a digital transformation standpoint, and making sure all the stakeholders see the strategy from the same vantage point. And there's we spoke of data and how disruptive it can be, right? And but then you can only get hold of data with a concerted effort, and having invested some of those investments that you have to make upfront for you to really benefit from a data advantage, right? And now there's all kinds of sayings out there: data is the new electricity, new oil, and new currency. But it doesn't happen overnight. It's not serendipity. So people who have really made data count, they have realized that at least 10 years prior, and they made those structural changes. They made those strategic investments in sort of bringing all these disparate data sources together. And then that's what will help you understand your customer deeply, help you understand your business in terms of what's working, what's not, help you understand your competition better, help you understand the trends better, right? And then so you need to have that in place, and then you need to have a technology to actually disintermediate a lot of layers that you have in a business model, right? Business model is undergoing through a lot of changes, and today we have quite a few overheads, right? And that is making you far removed from the customer, right? And then a lot of stuff gets lost in translation as well. So technology can help you disintermediate that stuff. We are that much closer to the customer. Finally, I would say, when all these are in place, you also have to have a right culture and organizational change capability mandate, right? A lot of people cannot deal with this, though they bought into the big picture, and then when rubber hits the road, there are a lot of conflicts that come to the fore. You almost feel like you're cannibalizing what worked. Especially this is the dynamic with the legacy enterprises who are embarking on that journey. You might feel in the short term you're cannibalizing what's working, right? And there would be channel conflicts, and so that's where the leaders have to stay committed with a strong conviction, and lay the path and bring all these guys together, work on that change management agenda as well. So for me, in summary, technology becomes mission critical. Data is indeed your new oil, but a lot to be done to take advantage of data. A lot of automation will kick in as well, and you will not be looking at mundane things. You'll be focusing more on the innovation, product innovation, service innovation, which means you also look at your process reengineering. And once you have a right reengineered process that is optimized, then focus on automation. Then you have the nonlinear scale to your business. And fourth, of course, your people and transformational change capabilities. So that's what I see we ought to be doing.
Thank you. Thank you. I think there are a lot of things that you have really brought to the fore, and all of them are really important. Bringing this change management and the transformation in the organizations, I think leadership has a huge role to play. So, is there a need to take a fresh look at the way leadership is defined? The roles are defined right now. So maybe, Niraj, you can share your views on that, and the way we steer the organizations as of now, and the way we look at the visions now, and the kind of cultures that we have built in the organization. So what would you like to say on that?
Thank you, Mandeep. I think Ravi brought out some great points in his technology adoption processes. As far as the changes that I feel we could adopt to in terms of leadership, I would like to say two things here. One is what is at the macro level. and one is what is more down to the skill set level. At the macro level, I have four very quick points to make. One is we have to fundamentally understand as a leader that you are actually in the business of solving a problem. You're in the business of creating some value for your customer. Definitely. That is the prime goal of business. So a little bit shift away from just looking at numbers and quarters and, you're in the business of solving a problem and creating more and more value to your ecosystem. In that regard, you need to identify the problem. There are many problems that I will talk later, which actually throw itself as an opportunity. You have to identify the problem. You have to innovate about the problem. And then you have to impact by delivering that problem solution. You do this through collaboration. But the fourth point I would want to say, and this is very true for India, and we have a big myth in this country for all of us that we age very quickly. For most people, they might not say this, but we start to age very quickly in life. And and I want to break that and talk about that a little bit. I still believe that the prime of a person is between 60 and 70. And there are 40 and 50, whatever, because look around the world and all the top, whether they are political leaders, they are Nobel laureates, or whatever innovation professors, there are out there. So I think we need to break this myth of aging quickly, because then it stops us from delivering what our opportunity and potential is. That was at the macro level, these 4 points I said. On the skill sets, I think we could do better in being transparent at the enterprise level, at the leader level. We could be much better. We could be much better in seeing ourselves and others as human beings. We could do much better as a leader, which is up there in terms of age, to become a technology teenager, just like a teenager. You need to be very adaptive and adaptive to things. You need to be a technology teenager. You need to listen, because with age, there is a normal tendency that we become rigid and we become not flexible and we don't listen. We grab the camera, we grab the mic, and whatever we may have learned, but we come out doing something else. And one of the important points is there is another myth about being a leader. How can he be emotional? How can he be empathetic? Yes, we can be. We are. It's good to be emotional. It's good to be empathetic, because therein lies the answer to understand a whole lot of system around you. So these are the quick points I wanted to make in what I think we should bring about some changes in our thinking process as leaders in the corporate world.
I totally agree with you. I think that is a very wholesome leadership concept that you've spoken about, because often I've seen in Indian context that, most of us get married to the jobs. We don't build any life, or, it's the life is built all around it. There's nothing more than that in our lives. And at times we just tend to do it and overdo it because there is nothing else. And somewhere it is impacting the innovation, somewhere it is impacting the, new thinking, because we are consumed into that sphere and keep working around that same thing again and again. So there is a dire need to break that mold and nurture the leaders which are more wholesome, and those who have goals beyond a specific corporate set of goals. Of course, they have to be committed to them, but they need to have life goals beyond that. And all of that would then really help them bring change, accept more, challenge the status quo, and innovate more. I think very well put by you, Niraj. Thank you. And now there was one point that Ravi was making about the automation and digitization and data. So I think that's a very critical point at this stage. Anyways, that pandemic has really taught us that a lot of things could be done online that we were still thinking they were on the slow burner all this while. And we've learned overnight a lot of things. However, at the same time, even in our organization, we coming from a service industry, we had the values like customer first, speed, simplicity, and trust, and all of that. And from the last couple of years, we've made digital first as one of the values. So it is very, very important. But here I would want to know more about that, digital being the new currency. I see customers, now becoming very wary of sharing their data. They are constantly worried about that, somewhere they are, agreeing to that fine print of terms and conditions and giving access to their personal information. So how the organizations, because it's a very important, big data is the key thing to innovate, how organization can ethically compile the data, customer data, and at the same time, sharpshoot their target segments and chisel the most and design the most suitable offers for them without really intimidating the customers and making them feel that they've given away all their personal information. Something about the data security and privacy, and how would you think the companies should protect?
Sure, that's a great point, and I think India is just embarking on this opportunity, the data-led innovation and disruption opportunity. I think we can learn a lot from what we've seen from Europe and also from the US. I think there are a lot of policy making that is in place, and that's continuously being revised and refined as well to protect consumers' interests, right? And India itself has come up with data protection policy. It still hasn't been gotten approval from a legislation, but the policy is in place. And up until 2019, we actually followed what is put in by European Union. It's called GDPR, General Data Protection Regulatory Framework. And so I think we complied to that. And before we get into some of those technicalities, let's first spend a minute or two understanding why we go after certain data that is of importance in order for us to innovate and provide that value for the customer. I think today, it's criminal to sort of come up with an innovation that is seemingly looking like one size fits all, right? And that may have worked in the past, and now with the proliferation of data, and you should make a concerted effort to know your customer, right? And if not to level of personalizing every individual, you should at least know there exists multiple cohorts, and each cohort has a specific need for the product that you are or the service that you are building. So I think that understanding can only evolve if you are able to collect the data. So I think it's a paramount importance for the corporates upfront to say why they're collecting certain data, right? And what sort of a goodness that will offer to the customer, right? We need to provide that transparency. And then, and we also need to take consent from the customer. And this is the information that we are collecting. And this is the way we're going to put it to use. This is the goodness that will give you if you do share, and the decision is left to you. And if you choose to share, this is what you get, right? And so that consent is important. And even when the consent is obtained, and the organizations have the responsibility in terms of how they collect the data, how they process the data, how they store the data, how they use it. It's one thing to say, I'm using it for this purpose, this is the value I provide. There have been instances where corporates may not necessarily comply to that understanding and the commitment. They've been deviations, right? And that's where the policymakers are putting a lot of frameworks and clamping down any those violations. So it's unethical, to your point, to deviate. So, and then when you do all of this stuff and you comply to all of this, still things could go out of whack. That's where you need to actually protect, right? And you need to make a lot of investment, just like you're making investments to collect data from various data sources, crunching and making sense and doling out all kinds of things. You have to make same effort and have similar intent to protect the data from leaking and reaching the hands of the cybercrime perpetrators. And then you're basically compromising on the interests of the customer. And it'll translate into huge loss for the end customer. Potentially, the trust goes with the business, and business also lose its opportunity in the market, right? So that's what it's a responsibility of the corporations as well. And I think even the multinationals who came to India in the beginning, when the policies weren't quite clear, and there have been some cases where questionable practices were followed, and it was not necessarily taking care of the interests of the customer. In the last 2-3 years, I think the awareness is far more, and we have a right framework. I think we had the hindsight advantage of looking at how European Union did the data protection, how as America did, and some things worked, something didn't. I think we and then we also seen the adverse effect of having a closed down framework, which is a closed loop framework, which is what China had followed, right? They made it pretty much their own, and other corporations, I mean, have no reach to it, and it had its own set of issues in terms of innovation. Customers were deprived of certain services and products that they could have benefited, right? So India sort of took best of both worlds and put together a framework that, in my opinion, is holding a customer interest in good stead.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree totally. Thank you so much. And now that we've established that we have a way to protect customers' data, and India has a very good model for that. So I'm taking the conversation to the broader canvas, and I'm asking this question from Niraj, that how can we be more inclusive? Because digitization is the way to reach the farthest of the segments, the rural segments especially. But at the same time, they still are wanting of education, the infrastructure in order to become to come on the digital platforms. So it is like that, a chicken and egg story. So do we digitize those last mile, and people will automatically start learning about it, or do we go and first spread the awareness, educate them, bring the needed infrastructure, the agrarian, this industry, what they usually are, thriving on? How do we help them build it further with the instruments, the new technology? How to bring the healthcare to them? These days for urban healthcare has also come online. All of us in this pandemic are consulting online, and we are able to reach. But how about that rural sector, especially since you really work with a lot of organizations internationally also in this particular sector? So I would want to have your views on that.
Thank you, Mandeep. I've been advocating a lot of what I call the inverted capitalism approach, the bottom up. We are in transition. We've done a lot of trickle down, top to bottom. We are in transition from a bottom to up. I truly believe that inverted capitalism, the last mile impact, which is in the rural sector, whether it is in healthcare, education, infrastructure, their incomes, or whatever, is something like a forgotten economy that we need to do. As an example, and if you look at our 4 or 5 large states, I mean, if you were to just take UP and Bihar and West Bengal and Jharkhand and all those, if our target of these 500 million people there was to double, triple their income over the next 10, 20 years, we would have added so much to our economy. But what is the methodology to do that is a bigger question. And I think we need to have a balance. That somewhere I think we tend to always get out of balance. And this pandemic is bringing us back to that balance. Just like we have our constitution, we have our executive division, judiciary division, and legislative division that supposedly at 120-degree do counter check and balances. I think as a business model for India, we have the services sector, we have the manufacturing sector, and we have the agriculture sector. I think going forward, and this pandemic has brought us back to that reminder, we need to definitely relook and deeper into the manufacturer and the agriculture sector. There is a general tendency of everyone to get into the service sector. Everything is respectful, everything is big, but it's like, who wants to dirty their hands and get into the manufacturing? Who wants to dirty their hand and get into agriculture sector? But therein lies the potential to empower India and all of us. So we need to get into that. We have concepts of distributed manufacturing, which has not been adopted by India as yet. But right now, when we saw migrant laborers going back and forth, the first thought every entrepreneur and business leader said, oh, what if I had not one factory, but I had 7 factories? In 7 smaller factory adding to one large, instead of having it in Delhi or Mumbai or Noida or wherever, or Chandigarh for that matter, can I have it in 5 different places? Have captive manufacturing there, captive employment there, and move the goods such that we don't need to do this. So this is what I talk about as the last mile, bottom-up inverted capitalism, touching the rural agro economy. And there is a whole lot of things to be done.
Right. Yeah, thank you. I think I totally agree with you. I think there is a need to, Ravi.
Mandeep, this is a very important point that you brought up, and I think Niraj has set the stage, and this is something that I'm actively involved in my latest startup, which is a fintech startup, and the tagline is, how do you make a last mile first mile, right? And technology can actually make a real difference there. And just again, I share all the enthusiasm and optimism that Niraj has articulated, and it's a real reality more so now than ever. If you sort of take a step back and look at what happened in India, right? I know people talk about India stack, JAM, Jan Dhan accounts, and Aadhaar infrastructure, and then a proliferation of mobile smartphones. 500 people have access to smartphone. You probably know some of this evolution more than anybody on this panel. And then, of course, the internet connectivity is all pervasive now, right? So now this is where we talk about digital first. It's not about applying digital first for the convenience of urban India, right? We have to take that power of digitization, digital first to last mile, right? And India, the 3 evergreen problem states are financial inclusion at the bottom of the pyramid, right? And you talked about healthcare. I think we have a tremendous opportunity to democratize access to quality healthcare with a technology and digital first approach, right? And then, of course, education, I see that being addressed through edtech initiatives as well. And when you do all of this stuff, and then in conjunction with what Niraj alluded to, you distribute the manufacturing as well, and make the agrarian society more vibrant by providing them just-in-time access to information, connecting them to the demand at the right time, right? And right price discovery, right? There's so many things, that were not possible. There was so much of information asymmetry, right? And the inefficiencies came in because of lack of all of this stuff. Now, all of us entrepreneurs and leaders, can embrace this opportunity and believe this is a reality. And if you make concerted effort, India will change. And digital first and technology first is for last mile. That's I strongly believe. Applying it to urban India is like pales in comparison.
True. I think making the last mile the first mile, and that's a great vision to have. And we really compliment you, Ravi, and we really wish you all the best for the success of this venture. And that brings me to the importance of startups. I think there's a huge role startups have to play, while the larger organizations should also go beyond the main urban setup and invest in the rural sectors. But even startups have a role to play. So here also, we do hear a lot of success stories of the startups, and these youngsters who are university pass outs, mostly dropouts. I see, who are really making it big, and we hear a lot of success stories. Even in yesterday's platform, I heard some really young entrepreneurs who have come up with very unique ideas and innovative ideas and have set up their startups. But having a great idea, these are only the few success stories. I'm sure there are a whole lot of them who are trying to make it big, who are really trying to make a difference, and they have such brilliant, unique ideas. But having an idea, but to making it live and seeing it, realized and implemented on ground successfully is another thing. So you having your experience there, I would want you to share your views. What are the things that they need to really get right to make their startup successful? And what are the things they need to really watch out for?
Yeah, that's a discussion for next few hours. I think we can chronicle a big essay around that. But let me try to simplify it, having been in a startup journey for almost 15 years. I've seen some successes. I've seen some failures as well. I think it starts with, I know the time is right now for someone to get into entrepreneurial journey. But I would start by saying, don't embark on the journey unless you're absolutely right and passionate about the problem that you're embarking on. Right? It's not a vanity metric. I have a pedigree. I come from a great school and I have a great pedigree, and I see my peers doing it. Let me just do another thing. Right? I think you need to do it at the right time, and you need to be passionate about the problem statement that you're embarking on. And founder needs to have that conviction. This is something that he or she will stay put, right? Through highs and lows, right? Having angel invested, having mentored many startups, I've seen some great founders out there, the great smarts, and but the conviction at times lacks, and a slightest obstacle, they start to second guess: is it the right thing to do? And there's some, come what may, whatever may the obstacles, they are willing to fight it out day in and day out. They're down and out, but they get up and dust themselves out and show up for the next day with the same passion and rigor. Right? I think that comes from the fact that you're so passionate and committed to that idea of disrupting and creating an impact at scale. So you have to look for founders who bring that passion and back them. The second thing is, I know there are all kinds of business models, and I'm not here to critique anything. I've been part of some of those business models myself, and they're all thriving. So I think in India is one such place. If you can focus on need versus want, right, and that would be a humongous justice to the country and nation of India, right? There's so many unmet needs, right? If you can bring technology and disruption to address those unmet needs at scale, right? Not only you're contributing to the nation's growth, but you have a thriving business as well, right? And I think that would be something that I would say, entrepreneurs and founders should get, having done multiple different things. This is my realization, my true calling now, right? Focus on the need versus the want, right? Of course, the business models built successfully on the wants as well. I'm not discounting anything. And then the third, of course, is you need to be very true to your mission and vision, but be very nimble and flexible and agile when it comes to having the right strategy. That's where you need to have that workover, the uncertainties, the volatility, and don't be pig-headed and say, this is the way or no way, right? You need to be cognizant of changing dynamics and be agile, and don't bring your ego to the fore, and be humble, and accept if this didn't work, right, something else will work, while you still staying true to the mission and vision, right? And a lot of founders when they're young, I don't think they do it deliberately. It's hindsight is 2020. You when you look back, these are the lessons that you would have learned, right? So that is one thing, and having a real good peer network is important, but equally important is the mentor network. That's where I feel country like India can do a lot of folks like us who've been at the receiving end of a lot of lodges from many successful entrepreneurs in the past, right? I lived in US for 15 years of my career in Silicon Valley. I see how entrepreneurs come to the fore and help other young struggling entrepreneur and founder, right? You call them up and say, XYZ, this is what I'm struggling with. They will drop everything and show up on a Saturday to have a coffee conversation and help you share their experiences, right? And I think we need to build that sort of a giving kind of a mentorship network, right? We have to build that, breed that. And entrepreneur has to be, our founder has to be very amenable and receptive to take help, right, when help is available. And then the another thing is focus equals to reality, right? Don't get too excited. I've seen a lot of startups, when you look at the problem statement, if something is not working, and the impatience kicks in and you embarking on something else, right? I think you need to you can make small pivots, right, to get the thing right, but focus on one thing. Don't spread yourself too thin. And once you get one, and then they also seen people as investing into scaling too soon, right? It's important you need to have what we call as product market fit, right? A product market fit is, you have to have the conviction that this idea that I have conceived is really creating value for the customer, right? And there is a real fit that is addressing a need, right? Now, how do we scale it, right? And that's when you start focusing on, right team, and what worked for you to get to 0 to 1, from 0 to 1 may not work when you're getting ready for scale. Then you start to look at organization differently. You need a different talent. Sometimes we founders think, this is the core group that actually got us here. We owe it to them. Absolutely, we owe it to them. But that doesn't mean you expect them to do the same thing for next wave of skill that you are embarking. So you need to have that openness to bring others who dealt with that, right? And then finally, in summary, I would say in this day and age, access to capital is not an issue, right? And access to technology is also not an issue. And you need to have good culture and good values, and have right talent that is aligned to your values and culture. And if you have those pieces in place, you're more than likely seeing success. Of course, even after having all of this stuff, it's not a recipe for us success, but at least you are embarking on right things.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree, because yesterday I was hearing this talk only about these young entrepreneurs and the startup champions that we had. So they spoke about it like the normal corporates, they were saying work from 9 to 5 p.m. But, in the initial years, the working hours for all these startup guys is 9 to 5 a.m. It's a sheer hard work, and they need to be really thick skinned. They need to be really, relentless in their way of, with a lot of perseverance, if they have a passion to follow. And I'm sure the things fall in place, at the right time, which is what the startups are all about. And now, taking the conversation slightly, because we are coming towards the end of the session. So I would just want to end with this last question that I thought that I had, where I wanted your views was, you keep hearing the economists, there are these two schools of thought. One set of economists would say that, let's look westwards, because these Western countries, the developed countries, have done really well, and follow their models. And, because that is a ready-made model available that we can simply replicate and have our own success in the country. But there are another set of economists who would say that, India is unique. It's very complex. It has its own challenges. So we can't simply, replicate what is happening or what happened in the West at that time when they were reaching moving from developing to developed countries. So there is this bit of a confusion. What is the right way to do it? So Niraj, I would want your views on that. What is the India business model that we should really look for? Which has the best practices of the world, but yet indigenous enough that it is relevant to us in our context. What are the India specific strengths that we have and opportunities that we have? We can definitely put to use. What are you? And maybe is it a time to implement circular economy?
Thank you, Mandeep. I think Ravi brought out some very great points about startup and entrepreneurship. I'll make three very quick points because I know we're running out of time. First is, I think there are too many people chasing too few ideas. So that's the first flaw that I see. I advocate, it's not a binary question about West and East. It's a question about find your niche problem area, create an innovative solution for it, build that small package solution, deliver, and you can expand into other markets. Don't start with this big statement that sounds very good, that the world is my oyster and I'll play it. The third thing is, I want to clarify that there is a misnomer about the very generic use of the word technology. Technology is not just about cloud computing and big data. It's not about creating an app only on a phone or doing something. Technology truly is science which goes into a real problem. I can list out 10 items right now where we have not done anything. I mean, imagine We have people dying in the sewage systems doing manual scavenging. This requires technology. Do you know the opportunities we have in if we come up with a solution there? It's unbelievable. But a lot of youngsters, and this is the thing I tell to youngsters, look into technology in the definition of a problem-solving approach, not just a user interface. There is a lot of opportunities in India. Pick up a niche market, pick up an innovation, create a know-how, or take it from somewhere, carry it to your small little play. If you have a success story in 1, 2, or 3, or 4 locations, people will run after you to scale it up later. Don't start from the world is my oyster. I think I'm out of time, so.
Yeah, I wish we could continue more with more, discussion around it. It's a very vast subject, and we're already learning a lot from both of you. But maybe next time in another session like that. So I look forward to have this conversation going. For now, I think it was very informative, very insightful conversation we had, and I personally really enjoyed. And I've made a lot of notes while you were talking to take back as a takeaway for myself, and I'm sure our viewers have also done the same. So great conversation. Thank you so much for your time. And let's wish the big houses really making that needed change and the young startups really grow and do well for the overall betterment of a country. And we really come out of this tough time unscathed, and we ready and we are poised to fly high going forward. So thank you so much and have a great Sunday.
Pleasure.
Signing off now.